Joining me now from here in Washington is Gavin Macgregor-Skinner. He's an infectious disease expert and the director of the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. So, Gavin, China has this big target, as I mentioned, 40% of its entire population by the end of next month. I'd like to get your thoughts on this goal and the program leading up to it.
Yeah, this is really important, Elaine, just to consider. You've said it as a percentage, but consider it as absolute numbers. The numbers are enormous. And just like we've seen here in the US, as we've rolled out our vaccination program, over 200 million doses now. Nearly 40% of the adult population meets the definition of fully vaccinated. It's just really mind-boggling when you think of the logistics, the organisation, the people it takes to vaccinate such huge numbers. So this is a huge logistical effort. It's amazing what I've seen here in the US, and I'm sure, again, the Chinese are doing the same planning, the same training, putting in the same clinics and the same procedures and protocols to ensure they can go to scale and go to scale very quickly. Because as we've seen in the US, what a dramatic impact vaccination has had on the COVID-19 disease.
Well, for months we've seen China send its vaccines to other countries and more recently offer them to the Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo. The U.S. is starting to do the same with its own vaccines. Will we see richer countries do the same, and should they?
Yes, Elaine, that's a great question. It depends on how we go to scale. It's really important to remember right now, the world, we're still under a public health emergency when it comes to COVID-19. We're still seeing those numbers of cases and hospitalizations and deaths in countries like India and other countries as well, which are still staggering. So it's really important that this is a global effort from all these different countries that now have tried and tested technology where they can make vaccines, and we need more vaccines right now. So it's important that not just countries like China, but other countries now that are using these known technologies to make the vaccine, they do it in a way that meets the World Health Organization for quality, safety, and efficacy. So they have to be studied, they have to show the results in the data, but it's so important. We still have a long way to go to get the rest of the population in so many countries up to the level where we'll see COVID-19 decrease and that risk of transmission of the SARS-CoV-2 virus decreased significantly.
Well, it leads us to our next question, Gavin. Days ago, the WHO gave emergency use approval for Chinese-made Sinopharm. Sinovac is still under consideration. How significant are these developments, and what does this mean for the COVAX program?
It's very, very significant because the World Health Organization has committees in place, protocols and procedures on when they evaluate the safety, the quality and the efficacy. Many countries, like China, for example, that are going into the production of these vaccines. So if I look around my house, so much of the stuff that I have, with it may be food, electronics, or even other items in my house, are not made in the US, they're made in other countries. And I buy them because either they're affordable or they're the quality. I can use them, they work. But as we move into medicines and vaccines, that increases the need for higher quality. It's more stringent, it's harder, it's more difficult. You have to show the data, the evidence that the vaccine or the medicine works. So we are now seeing countries like China and other move into what's called high quality development by doing their due diligence and showing they can make medicines, maybe not just vaccines, that could be used throughout the world. So this is a really interesting development. Is exciting for me as an epidemiologist, but more importantly, it's so important that the World Health Organization, through COVAX, ensures that it's done properly.
And Gavin, you and I spoke at the very beginning of the pandemic, before it was actually classified as a global pandemic. What is your take on what you're seeing right now around the world and what the next several months ahead look like?
Well, we know, Elaine, that movement is our enemy. We have seen the variants from different countries, the UK, South Africa, Brazil, come into, say, the United States because people are traveling from these international countries into the US. The same thing will happen globally. The more international travel that we do, we see more variants, we see more movement of the virus, and we'll see more populations, more people that are vulnerable to infection. So there are still many countries now that haven't even seen, at the high levels of transmission of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. There's still a lot of the world's population that haven't been vaccinated that are highly vulnerable. We are very fortunate here in the US that we've rolled out so many vaccines. We're seeing significant impact in hospitalizations and deaths and new infections. But again, many of the countries around the world just haven't had the ability or even been able to get the technology for the vaccines or even get the vaccines themselves. And they still haven't had that international travel that will move this virus. So there's still a highly vulnerable population globally right now.
All right, always great to hear your take. Gavin Macgregor-Skinner, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Elaine.